Narayana namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Okay, so this in the previous sessions of the third canto, we were discussing the the leaving of Sri Vidura of Hastinapura, and the Lord basically forced him out of Hastinapura by having the Kurus practically disrespect him to such an extent that he rejected his position in the family of the Kurus, and he disengaged and he walked away. And one of the reasons we spoke of was the fact that there was great offenses being committed in the assembly of the Kurus towards the Lord. And Sri Vidura, who was a part of such engagement, practically would have also been become a part of the karmic consequences. And as a consequence, Krishna practically forced him out by having Dhritarashtra and the others insult him, and so that Vidura could be saved from such calamity. Then we saw the fact that Sri Vidura understood that he was carrying the burden of association. When we talk about Sadhu Sangha is the most important aspect of our culture. And the reason why we speak of Sadhu Sangha as the most important aspect is because it is from the heart of the sadhu that we receive bhakti. We shared this in the previous session and the session prior to that. Bhakti Devi resides in the heart of the sadhu. And when we serve the sadhu, Bhakti Devi enters into our heart through the sound vibrations of instructions and kirtan and Krishna Katha spoken by the sadhu. So, this is basically a system which allows the parampara to receive faith from one level to another. And faith that is given is extraordinarily powerful, and to the extent to which the receiver is qualified, to that extent, the receiver has the ability to engage in and accept that faith and allow it to grow as well. So, the idea is for faith to be transferred from one particular level to another. And this is done through sound vibration. And the sound vibration itself is possible because we are serving the sadhu. And Bhakti Devi leaves the heart of the sadhu, which means she is transferred from the heart of the sadhu who has an abundance of bhakti. Bhakti Devi transfers from this heart of the sadhu into our heart. And Sadhu Sangha, particularly, is the first and foremost and the most important process at any given time in a devotional career. And it is just not the fact that we have to have Sadhu Sangha at inception. At every different level, there is a need for Sadhu Sangha. It is said that if you want to proceed from Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and you want to inculcate the spontaneous devotional service of Ragamarga, then at that point in time, you need to associate with those who are already on that path and who have the ability to give that faith onto our hearts. So it's again a matter of association is required at so many different levels. It is not just a level where you begin devotional service, but each and every time we meet someone with a great level of faith, they have the ability to strengthen our foundation and to push us forward because they carry deep relationships with the Lord, and as a consequence, they can transfer that relationship to us through their sound vibration. Now, the same can be said about Asat Sangha. Now, there is Sat Sangha and then there is Asat Sangha. Asat Sangha is where what is being discussed is very relative in terms of its scope. What is being discussed is very relative. It is not absolute. Satsanga is absolute because what is being spoken of is the highest absolute truth, Sat. But Asat Sangha is relative truth and embellished truth, that which is not steady. And that which is being shared there does not have a future. So Asat Sangha has the capacity to annul our faith as well. Just as much as Satsanga has the ability to give us a deeper sense of faith, a deeper sense of understanding relationships with Krishna, deeper sense of being able to move forward. Asatsanga has the opposite quality, where it has the ability to uproot what has been sowed before. And the reason why that is so is because it covers over our ability to understand Krishna. It covers over. It's practically very, very important for us to understand that both are possible. Both are possible. One allows us to remember Sambandha, the other helps us forget Sambandha. And as a consequence, we have to be cognizant of Sangha in terms of whether it is Asat or it is Satsanga. When is it when Sangha can be called as Asat Sangha? We can understand Satsanga in terms of being able to associate with devotees who have very deep faith and they are carrying very deep Sambandha in their hearts, Krishna Sambandha, and their speech practically transfers their Sambandha into our hearts. This is Satsanga, this is Sadhu Sangha. But when is it Asat Sangha? Asat Sangha is a circumstance where people have already forgotten Krishna. What is the characteristic of those who have forgotten Krishna? One of the most important characteristics of those who have forgotten Krishna is that they will not be able to respect the devotees. They will not recognize Krishna. They would have forgotten Krishna. They would have forgotten the presence of the Lord in their hearts, and they cannot respect devotees. They cannot. So when there is offense which is being committed, and there's great offense being committed to devotees, then such offense is also a product of forgetting Krishna. And when we associate with those who have forgotten Krishna, then we develop tendencies to forget Krishna as well. So the ability of the sun of devotional service being covered by the clouds of anarthas increases when we are in asat sangha. So anartha is nothing but coming in touch with objects that can practically cover our understanding and our sambandha with Krishna. If there is anything which can really cover over our understanding and our sambandha with Krishna, then that is an anartha, that which has no meaning to us, because we as souls are particularly interested in furthering our sambandha, particularly interested in being able to move forward. And if something can obfuscate and cover our understanding of the Lord, then that is particularly an anartha. So when we do engage with those who have themselves forgotten Krishna, and what is a sign of forgetting Krishna? In the assembly of devotees, if devotees offend each other, we should understand that they have forgotten Krishna. Yeah, they have forgotten. And this is the same reason given by Lord Vishnu himself. When Jaya and Vijaya prevented the sages, the Kumaras, from entering the Vaikuntha, the gates of Vaikuntha, they prevented them because they started committing offenses. What was the offense that began? The offense was that they practically judged these great personalities by their body. They judged them as young babies, or they were toddlers. They were very young. They were like 5 or 6 year olds. They had a body which was very small. And as a consequence, the judgment was, what would these people know? Who are they? So the idea of being able to forget Krishna starts with body consciousness, and that becomes very evident. And body consciousness in reality is nothing but becoming offensive to devotees as well. Yeah, when someone is very body conscious, they also take offense, and then they also give offense in abundance. Yeah, they're very body conscious. So amani manadena is non-existent. So their own man, abhiman, becomes very much in the forefront. Yeah, their false ego is very much present, and as a consequence, they particularly respond very venomously when they are in the in face of any kind of criticism, any kind of, I would say, disturbance. You would have people taking great offense simply because they are very conscious of their own body. Now, these great sages, they basically were not in a mode of ignorance when they came in touch with Jaya and Vijaya. They were not in the idea, they didn't have this particular idea of wanting to curse them because they wanted them to suffer. But they wanted to basically say that you can't really be in the gates of Vaikuntha with this consciousness. You belong elsewhere. So that was the reason for them to particularly speak out the idea of them being having to leave Vaikuntha and take birth in the womb of Diti and become asuras and so on and so forth. All of these chain of events starts with forgetting Krishna, because when Krishna himself walks down Vaikuntha running to meet the sages who are offended by Jaya and Vijaya, the words that are spoken by the Lord is that they have forgotten me. So it is when we forget him is when we also insult devotees. When we forget him is when there is aparad. It is when we forget him is when anarthas are imposed upon us because our association with is particularly become quite bitter, and it is asat sangha. Yeah, it is asat sangha. Now, what should a devotee do, which was displayed by Vidura? He practically left the assembly, but along with leaving the assembly, he also had lost his sukriti. He recognized that because of bad association, the spiritual credits that he was carrying were lost, they were diminished in potency. So he wanted to pick up and increase his spiritual credits. As a consequence, he went on parikrama. The whole idea of going around to different places of pilgrimage was to come in touch with sadhus. It was not because there was something special in that particular site of pilgrimage. That particular site of pilgrimage, needless to say, had the pastimes of the Lord. However, what is more important and what is even more potent in delivering a soul is the sadhu who sits in the sites of pilgrimage and who has the ability to speak and give their sambandha onto the hearts of the visitors. So Sri Vidura wanted to replenish his spiritual credits. So he was particularly eager and very, very enthusiastic about sadhu sangha. He practically walked away and he went on this little pilgrimage so that he could meet different sadhus and then he could gain their association. And by gaining their association, he could particularly replenish or, in one sense, put everything back together. Whatever was lost was being put back together. So one needs to understand that the coming back of sadhus, coming back of devotional service requires association. So if one has left devotional service, they have left because of anarthas. They have left because they have come in touch with asat sangha. And when there is asat sangha, anarthas would come automatically. If you will notice what is an anartha after you've engaged in devotional service for a long time, you will notice that there is anartha when we develop a taste for what we have left behind. If we develop a taste for music that particularly was very appeasing to us at some point in the past, when we develop a taste for some kind of entertainment, some kind of association with, relative truths, asat, that was left behind before coming into devotional service, all of these are signs that there is an aparad that has been committed. And because of the aparad, we are again developing an interest in wanting to immerse ourselves in what is considered to be asat sangha. Yeah, we immerse ourselves in asat sangha. Where does this taste come? The original taste of devotional service, when it is being covered over because of bad association, and this bad association particularly is, offensive association, because they have anarthas, they can dump it on us. So Sri Vidura left so that he could just wash himself off. Washing one's sins off or replenishing spiritual credits is not a matter of having a dip in the Ganga or having a dip in Yamuna Ji or having a dip in Sri Radhakund. Depending on if we come to Sri Vrindavan, if people go to Radhakund, we have devotees going to Radhakund, Sri Radhakund. Having a dip in all these special places is not the solution. The solution is sadhu sangha, because without sadhu sangha, Bhakti Devi, who resides in the heart of the sadhu, will not come into our hearts. Replenishing and increasing spiritual credits requires sadhu sangha. And that is why Srimad Bhagavatam, particularly in this particular age, is not recommending reading, it is not recommending anything else. The whole display of Srimad Bhagavatam, the act of sharing Srimad Bhagavatam, is Shrinvatam. You have to go and listen. Listen to a devotee. And by listening to a devotee, you have the ability to receive faith, and then that faith can give us inspiration for devotional service. When we act out in devotional service, we build spiritual credits. By building spiritual credits, our own immune system, spiritual immune system, becomes very strong, and as a consequence, we have the ability to take off. You see, everybody requires fuel. Our fuel starts with seva. Our fuel starts with sangha, and then once we are in sangha, it starts with seva. And once seva is done, pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya, faith is received, and faith needs to be replenished all the time. There are different levels of faith. So one should not think that basically their process of listening ends or their process of association ends. One should not think that because at every different level there are souls who can inspire us and we have to come in touch with them and receive from them. And as a consequence, by receiving that inspiration, receiving the sambandha from their hearts through sound vibration, we have the ability to move forward. So Sri Vidura went away. And as he goes away, he comes in touch with Sri Uddhava. And Uddhava is a pure devotee. He is from Sri Dwaraka and he is also basically being dispatched by Krishna to go to Badrikashram. In Badrikashram, Krishna is incarnating as basically Naranarayana Rishi. He is there as Naranarayana Rishi, and he wanted Uddhava to associate and have the association and the blessings of Sri Sri Naranarayana Rishi in Badrikashram. On the way to Badrikashram, these great souls, Sri Uddhava and Sri Vidura, they meet up and they are having a conversation. And particularly in the previous session, we spoke of the fact that Uddhava was asked by Krishna to leave and go to Badrikashram because he was wrapping up or unmanifesting his pastime. He had particularly desired that the Yadus destroy themselves, and he wanted these eternal associates such as Uddhava and others to be not participate in the destruction, unwanted destruction, in the sense that they don't need to be put into a circumstance of the mode of ignorance for them to end the dynasty. They basically can go to Badrikashram, they can be in Dwaraka, etc. So the eternal associates of the Lord, they were not a part of the fights that took place between the Yadus after coming in touch with intoxication. Intoxication, particularly, when they had the feast, they had the intoxication, and that particular intoxication got them cursing each other. And once they started cursing each other, fist fights broke out. They practically killed each other. The description given in Shastra is that these Yadus were under the protection of Krishna. No one could have vanquished them other than the desire of the Lord. Krishna desired that this dynasty practically vanquish themselves, give up all their particular karma that they accumulated, and then depart to their original stations. Uddhava, on the other hand, was asked to go to Badrikashram. He was a Vasu. Now, what is very interesting as we read in this chapter is that just as much as Krishna expands himself into different realms and represents himself in Vaikuntha in different incarnations as Narayana, as the Vaikuntpati Narayana, then Sri Narayana, is basically, Krishna in Dwaraka, Krishna in Lord Ram's incarnation. Then you have Narasimhadev and Varahadev. These are three incarnations. Lord Ram, Narasimhadev, and Varahadev. These are three incarnations who are incarnations of Narayana himself. Sampurna Paramatma Amsa, it is basically 100% Narayana himself. Then there are expansions of Lord Narayan who are Shirodakashai Vishnu, Garbhodakashai Vishnu. They expand and then they also incarnate, and there are different incarnations who are all a part of it. Then you have incarnations who are a combination of the three modes of material nature. All the Guna avatars represented by the Lord, they combine and then they come as Lord Dattatreya, for example. Yeah, so you have different levels of incarnations who descend. They are non-different. They are non-different, but they are also different in the sense of their participation in the overall scheme of things in terms of what happens. So there's some difference, but there's also no difference. Now, Sri Uddhava, what is interesting to note here is that just as Krishna expands from Krishna to Balaram, Balaram to the four, the quadruple expansion in Dwaraka, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Anirudh, Pradyumna, and then the second quadruple expansion. And in the second quadruple expansion, you have Narayan as Vasudeva, and then you have Mahasankarshana, then Pradyumna, Aniruddha. So all of these personalities, just as they expand from Krishna, what is being seen here is Uddhava, who is an eternal associate, has also expanded, and one of his plenary portions is a Vasu. It's quite interesting. One of the plenary portions is the demigod, one of the 8 demigods who is a Vasu, and that particular Vasu also had a desire. Yeah, he had a desire of wanting eternal association of the Lord. So Uddhava is plenary portion. So he's an eternal associate, but he is expanded as a Vasu. And then when he is expanding as a Vasu, which means the eternal associates are in the eternal stations, but they're also expanding to serve as demigods, etc. And they also descend. So Uddhava himself had expanded as one of the 8 primary Vasus, and there he had requested association of the Lord. So he had no other interest because he was already a Nitya Siddha. As a consequence, he was wanting, when all of the demigods were engaging in fire sacrifices and austerities, he was wanting personal association of the Lord, while others were asking for many other things. So this is very interesting. Krishna speaks about how Uddhava's plenary portion had become a Vasu. So it's interesting to note that the Nitya Siddhas themselves expand into different levels of the demigods, which is not surprising. Because there are so many different levels of expansions that the Nitya Siddhas also have the ability. These are all eternal associates. They also expand, and then they come as demigods. They come as, in some other way, an associate, and then offer service to the Lord. So it's quite interesting to note that the Lord wanted him to go to Badrikashram. The rest of the Yadus, particularly, were inspired by the Lord's potency of time, the time factor. What had happened, the description that is being given here is that in a forest which is filled with bamboo shoots, no one causes a forest fire. One bamboo stalk rubs against a second bamboo stalk due to wind. And because of wind, the fire begins in the bamboo because of the friction. Between two bamboo stalks, there's friction. And as the friction, due to the friction, fire begins. That is how a forest fire begins. No one is held responsible. You see, no one is held responsible because a forest fire has its own accord, its own plan. And this is particularly quite significant to note here that the Srimad Bhagavatam talks about the destruction of the Yadus being described as a forest fire. The Acharyas talk about it as a forest fire because it is the Lord's own desire. It is the Lord's own desire to destroy his clan, and he particularly causes this destruction by introducing the mode of ignorance. The mode of ignorance comes in the form of alcohol, and the moment the mode of ignorance goes inside the body, then they forget who they are, because forgetting is the mode of ignorance. Alcohol is particularly very, 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 very tamasic. Yeah, it's quite astonishing that for cleaning purposes in the West they use alcohol, and the same alcohol is considered to be extremely contaminating when it comes in touch in terms of Vedic science. Yeah, we are not allowed to clean things with alcohol. Alcohol is very contaminating as far as Vedic science is concerned because it's extraordinarily tamasic. The opposite is seen in the West, where they consider that you can spray something with alcohol and then superficially you remove all the germs, but then there's great tamas which is created in that spot because of the spraying of alcohol. Yeah, so people ingesting alcohol, they particularly have a tendency to forget. It dulls the brain and they forget. This is exactly what was induced by the Lord, because the Lord is in the hearts of the Yadus. So, this friction of the bamboos causing a forest fire, destroying the entire forest, is being described here as the Lord's will causing friction amongst the Yadus and them destroying each other. Yeah. What happens when the body is destroyed? What is it that happens when the body is destroyed? One of the very significant aspects when the physical body is destroyed is that a lot of karma gets destroyed as well. This is quite significant. The karma of an individual is particularly manifest in terms of property, it is manifest in terms of the physical body, and it is also manifest in terms of consciousness, in terms of how conscious they are, in terms of what happens to their consciousness when they come in touch with all of these. Yeah. So when there is destruction of the body, a large portion of karma is removed. Yeah. Lot of prarabdha, we call it prarabdha. Prarabdha is that which is experienced in this lifetime. Then there is sanchita karma, that which is left over. What is left over can still influence us, and what is prarabdha is what is being experienced in this lifetime. Now, this prarabdha is quite interesting, is that this prarabdha itself is destroyed. It is destroyed when the body is destroyed. Yeah. So when we say that someone is a pure devotee, when someone is a pure devotee of the Lord, they have some prarabdha. Without prarabdha, one cannot remain in the physical body. If all the prarabdha is over, they will depart. Yeah, if the prarabdha is over, they would depart. So even the pure devotees of the Lord will have some portion of prarabdha which allows them to stay in the physical body so that they can execute services for the Lord. And this is just basically a connection so that they can remain in the physical body. It is not a situation which influences them, but they remain in the physical body so that they could continue the services. When prarabdha is over, then they depart. The beauty of the process given to us by Lord Chaitanya is that the entire storehouse of karma of millions of lifetimes is destroyed by the chanting of Harinam. Harinam Sankirtan, the chanting of Harinam, which is the entire motivation given by Srimad Bhagavatam. So when we come in touch with Srimad Bhagavatam, we are motivated to chant Harinam. Harinam has the capacity to particularly uproot everything. So we practically have the ability to cleanse every instance of karma of the past. What is the manifestation of this cleansing? How do we know that the cleansing process is on? The cleansing process is on if we can see who we are. Cheto darpanamarjanam. Yeah. When the chitta is being cleansed to such perfection, then the mirror of the heart becomes very clean. One is able to see who they are. When the eternal self is being revealed in the heart through chanting of Harinam, where the prarabdha and the sanchita and all the sum total of karma is cleared, then the clouds have been removed. One has the ability to see who they are. They're able to see who they are. They're able to see Krishna. Yeah, they're able to see who they are and they're able to see Krishna. Then one can have an understanding that the so-called clearing stage is almost coming to an end, because now they know that they are eternal servants of the Lord. The clouds have been moved, and then the sun of bhakti is just shining forth and then basically blazing in terms of being able to understand who they are, revealing the instance of who they are. This is very clear that as we go forward, one should understand who they are and they should understand who is Krishna. This happens due to the destruction of Prarabdha and Sancheta. Yeah, Prarabdha and Sancheta are being destroyed. So practically all the karma is being destroyed. However, some portion is still left over, and the portion that is left over is required for us to remain in the physical body, even though one's consciousness is not hampered by the karma. Yeah. So one could be pure where the consciousness is not hampered, but they still need a little prarabdha for them to remain in the physical body. Now, when Krishna destroys the Yadus and he destroys all their belongings, particularly in terms of their losing their ability to exist, yeah, particularly what I'm saying is that all the men folk and everybody got destroyed during that particular time. The sum total of all the prarabdha and everything else was also destroyed. So this was particularly important so that as he departs, these personalities who came to serve him from different parts of the universe and some from the eternal stations, all of them departed. Those who were eternally associated with him, they went away to specific spots, such as Sri Uddhava was asked to go to Badrikashram, etc. And then those who were there to serve him due to the need for service, the demigods and so on and so forth, who were there to serve him, they all were in different bodies of the Yadus. They all departed after such a fight, and they had also given up the prarabdha of that particular lifetime which was left because the body was being destroyed. Now, very importantly, one also needs to understand is that after such destruction, the souls got back to their station after doing service. Those who desired of wanting to associate with the Lord eternally would get an opportunity to move to the womb of those associates of the Lord in a different place where the Lord is incarnating. But those who have come there to associate but have not developed a desire to associate with the Lord, but have simply come there and then fulfilled their obligation, due to their position and authority, then they go back to their original stations. But those who associate and those who want association, then they are particularly given an opportunity to reincarnate wherever the Lord is again moving to share, begin his pastimes. So, which is eternal pastimes that are unmanifest here become manifest elsewhere. So this was the departure pastime of the Lord, where he ended his manifestation in terms of the Yadus, and then he particularly would manifest again in some other universe. And these souls who were wanting eternal association would be born in the wombs of the mothers who were in and around that particular place. This is very important as well to understand. So the prarabdha was destroyed. Yeah. And in some cases, everything was destroyed. All the karma was destroyed. Sri Uddhava was an eternal associate. He was asked to go to Badrikashram. But he did not obey Krishna. He said, Krishna, I can't really be in separation from you. So he walked following Krishna, and there's a description given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that Krishna is sitting with one foot raised, or the right foot on the left thigh, and he is in a very thoughtful posture and resting his back on a very young banyan tree, Ashwatha. It is Ashwatha is the name for banyan trees. He is actually resting his back. This Ashwatha is a very young tree which has been chosen, but it has the ability to live for hundreds and hundreds of years. The life of a banyan tree, Ashwatha, is hundreds and hundreds of years. So he's showing his back to the Ashwatha and he's sitting there. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has commented that the banyan tree, which is made of material elements, the five elements, and has all the material qualities, Krishna is showing his back to those material qualities. Yeah, his back is turned to those material qualities. He has nothing to do with them. He is resting his back on such material qualities. All those qualities are in the banyan tree. So this is significant in the sense that his back is turned towards the material qualities or the external energy. Then he is facing the Saraswati river. He's sitting on the banks of the river and he's in a very thoughtful mood. And then Shri Uddhava sees him there. Now, as Shri Uddhava is seeing him there, Maitreya Rishi appears. Shri Maitreya was a great Brahmana, but he was not a pure devotee. He was a Jnani. He was a Jnani, he was not a devotee, great devotee. As a consequence, as he appears before the Lord, it is said that there must have been something very significant for Shri Maitreya to appear there. How could someone just appear during the extraordinary pastime of the Lord spending time on the banks of the river trying to begin his disappearance or unmanifest pastimes? So Sri Maitreya reaches there, and Maitreya is not considered to be a pure devotee, but he is a worshipper of the Lord. He is considered to be dear to the Lord. The Lord is very dear to him. So there's a conversation that occurs between Uddhava and Krishna, and this conversation that occurs has nothing to do with particularly wanting to share important facts with Uddhava. It has a lot to do with helping Sri Maitreya Rishi understand the motivation of devotional service. So, this special mercy that was bestowed upon by Krishna to Maitreya Rishi was the conversation between Krishna and Uddhava that happened at that particular time before he was beginning his pastimes of disappearance from the planet or disappearance from vision, in terms of the manifestation on the planet. So that's what we are going to read about today. So this is verse 9, and we will go on with that. Verse 9 of chapter 4. At that time, after traveling in many parts of the world, Maitreya, a great devotee of the Lord and a friend and a well-wisher of the great sage Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, reached that spot out of his own perfect accord. So he was a disciple of Sri Parashara Muni. Sri Parashara is the father of Srila Vyasadeva, and Sri Maitreya was known to Srila Vyasadeva because he was a disciple of his father. Now, Srila Prabhupada's purports, which have been drawn from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Sri Sridhar Swami's commentary, these are commentaries that were written by the acharyas and subsequent acharyas, subsequent spiritual masters who have written commentaries on the Srimad Bhagavatam have drawn from these commentaries to maintain consistency. They have added their own realizations to connect it to the present, to basically present a view which is very much connected to the time, place, and circumstances of the present. However, they have drawn from the past so that the consistency and the essence remains the same. So the words of Srila Prabhupada are that Sri Maitreya was a great philosopher, but he wasn't a pure devotee. So meeting of pure devotees with Krishna is a natural occurrence because that's what they do. But Maitreya Muni meeting Krishna is talked of as a very big thing because he was a great thinker, he was a great philosopher, he was a great sage, he was one of the main disciples of Sri Parasara, and he was also an associate of Srila Vyasadeva, friend. However, he doesn't fall into the category of pure devotion because of desires. So one needs to understand that the whole purpose of preaching, the whole idea of preaching is to inculcate desires. We are all born with karma. We all have our karma. Preaching is supposed to motivate desires. There may be karma that may only qualify us for a certain experience. But if someone can motivate desires in our heart to qualify or to desire to experience something which is even more profound, then such action is the true sense of preaching. The whole idea of preaching is to put desires into the hearts of the listeners so that those desires would allow them to go far beyond what their karma would have normally allowed them to do. This is very important because everyone who participates in our classes, in our movement, they're all at different levels participating in engagement in preaching. As a consequence, one needs to know what is the purpose of preaching. The purpose of preaching is to inculcate desires. Desires that are far, far more deeper, more profound, that can allow the soul, allow the listener to reach heights which are far beyond their original karma. So there is karma and then there are desires. Yeah. Karma only allows us to go to some extent. What we have come with and what we have today can only allow us to go to some extent. But coming in touch with others who have the ability to inculcate deeper desires, which essentially means coming in touch with inspiration, coming in touch with bhakti, coming in touch with a higher level of faith, would practically bring these desires into our heart, which can overwhelm and make us achieve things which are far beyond what we originally can accomplish purely based on our karma. That's why sadhu sangha is so important, because a sadhu can inspire us, and the inspiration can take us to levels that are far beyond our capacity if only karma were to be considered. This is very important for us to understand. Yeah, that the whole purpose of preaching is to inculcate desires, inculcate powerful desires in the hearts of the listeners, where they are able to go and overcome whatever their karma is and go far beyond the karma. And you can notice this, that in every religion and every spiritual aspect, there will be few souls whose karma was to be in that particular religion. But the desire to know Krishna would be such that they would have somehow or the other stumbled upon a deeper level of understanding of what to ask for, a deeper level of understanding of what to ask for, what to pray for, developing habits, so on and so forth. So there is karma and then there is desire. Desire has the ability to overcome karma. Karma can be overcome by desire. And that particular desire, which is inculcated by association, would mean that the sound vibration of whomever we are associating with, if they have the ability of great desires in bhakti, then they have the ability to pass those desires on to us, because now we are associating. Bhakti Devi reaches our heart and she allows us to develop such desires. And these desires may be far beyond our capacity, but then that's the whole objective of coming in touch with sadhus. The whole objective of coming in touch with sadhus is to inculcate and develop desires that are far beyond our station. Yeah, far beyond our station. This is lobha, this is greed, and this greed becomes very essential, because if you don't have greed, then you're not going to achieve anything. So desiring far beyond our station is not extraordinary. Yeah, it is not extraordinary. It is not basically a situation which one should think that it is not supposed to happen. It is supposed to happen. We ought to be inspired far beyond our capacity, which is what Srila Prabhupada did, right? He practically was able to inspire those whose karma itself was such that they were displaying the symptoms of their karma. They were very deeply, deeply ignorant. Yeah. They were displaying the symptoms of the karma. But Srila Prabhupada's presence in their lives was so profound that his sound vibration, his faith, his particular sambandha with Krishna was so powerful that they developed desires. He gave them desires that were far beyond what they were qualified to have as just their karma. It's so fascinating to see that he gave desires to them. And those desires particularly started manifesting because they started following his instructions. They came under his care. So there is desire, and then that part there's karma. And desire can achieve things far beyond karma. Yeah. And that requires sukriti. You should have already been doing a lot of work, and the spiritual credits, when it comes in touch with proper motivation due to someone else's motivating us because of their own station in spiritual life, then these two things, when they meet together, one is has the ability to take off. This is very important. Yeah. So we already have sukriti. Sukriti means you can render service in the temple, you can engage in pure devotional service by cleaning the temple, assisting in preaching, doing so many other things. We develop sukriti. Yeah. When that sukriti meets with, when that sukriti, that particular collection of spiritual credits, it meets with someone who has the ability to inculcate deep desires in our heart, then the fire gets lit very purposefully and has the ability to take the soul to great heights. This is exactly the sequence. The sequence is that we engage in our service, we develop very deep spiritual credits, and we also come in touch with sadhus. Their ability to inculcate desires in us is basically how it works, and then we are able to achieve things that are far beyond our station. So here, Maitreya Muni was there, and he was in association of the Lord himself. He had an enormous quantity of credits because he was, a great, I would say, devotee, but he was not pure. But he had the ability to come in front of Krishna, which itself meant that he had a lot of spiritual credits. Now, Krishna started speaking. And what was Krishna doing? He was trying to motivate pure devotional service in the heart of Sri Maitreya Muni. And he was doing that by using Sri Uddhava as an instrument. So that's what this conversation is. Maitreya Muni was greatly attached to him, the Lord, and he was listening in a pleasing attitude with his shoulder lowered, with a smile and a particular glance upon me, having allowed me to rest. The Lord spoke as follows. This is being related by Sri Uddhava. Now, this is Krishna talking to Sri Uddhava. O Vasu, I know from within your mind what you desired in the days of yore, when the Vasus and the other demigods responsible for expanding the universal affairs performed sacrifices. You particularly desired to achieve my association. This is very difficult to obtain for others, but I award it onto you. Yeah. So this is Krishna talking to Sri Uddhava, saying that when you were a demigod and you were basically as a Vasu, you basically desired to achieve my association. This is very difficult to obtain, but I'm awarding it onto you. Now, this is motivating Sri Maitreya Muni. This is basically Krishna is preaching. He's using Uddhava as an instrument. O honest one, your present life is the last and the supermost, because in this term of life you have been awarded my ultimate favor. Now you can go to my transcendental abode, Vaikuntha, by leaving this universe of conditioned living entities. Your visit to me in this lonely place, because of your pure and unflinching devotional service, is a great boon for you. Yeah. Now imagine Krishna saying, I'm giving you eternal, transcendental place in Vaikuntha. And he's saying this in front of Maitreya Muni. He's telling this to Sri Uddhava. He's particularly, you can just imagine what would happen to the heart of Sri Maitreya when he listens to this. Oh my goodness, I wish I had desired this. Yeah. His desire would just start flowing out of his heart because now he is hearing Krishna awarding transcendental situation to in Vaikuntha to Sri Uddhava. Imagine hearing it. The moment you hear it, you will also desire it. And Krishna was motivating Sri Maitreya. What was he doing? He was putting a desire into the heart of Sri Maitreya. And as Sri Maitreya now puts all his effort and his sadhana, but with this desire in mind, he would achieve Krishna as well, which was the whole purpose. This is what we do by inculcating and putting the seed of desire in the hearts of others. O Uddhava, in the lotus millennium, in the days of yore, at the beginning of the creation, I spoke unto Brahma, who is situated on the lotus that grows out of my navel, about my transcendental glories, which the great sage describe as Srimad Bhagavatam. So here Krishna is saying that he motivated Lord Brahma by speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. What was this? Basically, Lord Brahma was bewildered. He didn't know what to do. As everybody else would be, he did not know what to do, and he was quite bewildered. And at that point in time, Lord Brahma hears a voice saying, Tapaha, which means engage in penance. Tapaha is to penance, to engage in penance. He hears a voice, engage in penance, engage in tapaha. The moment he sits down and engages in tapaha, he does tapas for 1,000 years, chanting the mantra given to him by Krishna. He hears the mantra as well. At the end of the 1,000 years, he has a darshan of Lord Narayan. This is seen in the end of the second canto. He has darshan of Lord Sri Narayan, and Lord Narayan, which is Krishna himself, speaks the Chatushloki to Lord Brahma. The Chatushloki is the condensed gist of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and that is spoken to Lord Brahma after he sits in tapasya for 1,000 years. We have to ask ourselves, how many years of tapasya have we done where Srila Prabhupada's mercy has provided us with the Chatushloki in print? Yeah. When Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was searching for a copy of Srimad Bhagavatam, authentic copy, because there were a lot of interference in terms of purports written by the followers of Shankaracharya, which were not the original theme as acceptable by the author, Srila Vyasadeva. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur could find just one copy. Now, it was the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that the original words that were spoken to Lord Brahma, the 4 verses, are now in print, and it is on iPad, and it's on everything that's accessible to us in a matter of a few seconds. We just can't understand what we have been given because we don't even know what it is. Yeah, we just don't even know what's been given to us. This is so profound that Lord Brahma had to sit in tapasya for 1,000 years for this particular knowledge. 1,000 years of tapasya for this knowledge. And we are receiving it through the agency of Srila Prabhupada so easily that we can't even appreciate what's been given to us. Most of us don't appreciate what's been given to us. Most of us don't really know what's in store and what's been given to us. It's so unfortunate. That's why Srila Prabhupada was so particular about his books, because his books carry the original conversation of the Lord with Lord Brahma. It carries the Chatushloki of Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam being distributed and being in anyone's house is one of the greatest gifts one can ever receive, for the simple reason that this is so rare. This is so rare. This is so rare because it took 1,000 years for the Creator to listen to Krishna and receive it. 1,000 years of tapasya, and then it's been given to all of us so easily, so we don't realize what it is. Sometimes there's indifference, that we become contempted. There's contempt for or indifference whenever we receive things very easily. So I guess in one sense, this particular indifference that we show in our own lives towards what's been given in many levels is also because it has come to us very easily. But if we understand that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur couldn't find a single copy of the Srimad Bhagavatam when he was searching for it, if we understand that there were one single copy of Bhagavatam and everybody had to sit under a tree and dedicate years studying at the lotus feet of their spiritual master back in the days, yeah, because there were not many copies, there were no prints, it was all written, so it was quite rare. One had to go and submit themselves to several years of study under qualified teachers to learn Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. And then even before that, the creator, the secondary creator, Lord Brahma, had to sit in tapasya for 1,000 years to hear the gist of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srila Vyasadeva received the Srimad Bhagavatam's essence in his heart, realized all the aspects of Srimad Bhagavatam, kept it in his heart, and keeping all these realizations within his heart, he practically compiled and wrote the Vedanta Sutra. And that Vedanta Sutra is practically considered to be the foundation of all the sampradayas. but they all have their foundation from the heart of Srila Vyasadeva, which itself contained the original essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam and the four verses, which are the gist of Srimad Bhagavatam, they are being given such a great importance. They've been accorded such importance here simply because, this is the original conversation of Lord Narayan with Lord Brahma. It's very difficult for us to even conceive of this. That's why it is so hidden. That is why this is so hidden. Yeah, it is so hidden. You could keep the book, you could read, and then yet we can't understand. Yeah, there are such mystical aspects because it's hidden. Why? Because this requires tapasya. This requires tapasya. This requires tapasya. And then Srila Prabhupada was very merciful. He understood our own inability to read Sanskrit, and he gave us wonderful English translations and purports so that the whole world could understand. And then there were so many other sevas which the disciples did. They translated it to other languages so that everybody could understand. Kali Yuga is indeed a very fortunate time, especially if you're connected to the movement. Only if you're connected to the movement, I would say. Only if you are connected to Lord Chaitanya is Kali Yuga a fit place, simply because there's so much available and so easily available. And we can't understand it because we don't realize how difficult it is to obtain this. We can't understand it. Now we are seeing this in reality in this particular chapter as to how Krishna himself is saying, Uddhava, basically, he's talking about how he instructed Lord Brahma with the Chatushloki. Hmm? Now, the Chatushloki is described as Srimad Bhagavatam. It is expanded. What was the original Chatushloki? The first verse of the Chatushloki speaks about the fact that Lord Narayan is the beginning, he is the middle, and he is the end, which means they talk about Sat. Sat, which is eternality, is spoken of in the first verse. The remaining verses talk about Chit, and then finally the fourth verse talks about how eternal happiness, Ananda, can't be experienced unless one already has Sat and Chit. Yeah. If Sat and Chit in any way are compromised, then there isn't any question of Ananda. It is going to be interrupted. And if it is interrupted, it is not considered to be high quality. Yeah, happiness that is interrupted is rejected in scripture. It has to be uninterrupted. Yeah, apratihata. So unless it is uninterrupted, it is not considered to be a wonderful situation. So the first verse speaks about eternality. The second verse talks about how, if any action performed which is not connected to the Lord, is simply an action that is a part of material energy, which means it is going to be destroyed. This is also knowledge, it is chit. And then it talks about how, even though the Lord is situated in the hearts of all the living entities, he is not affected by the actions, which practically also says that if we attain the same quality as the Lord qualitatively, then we wouldn't be affected by our journey and we would return back to the spiritual sky. And the fourth says that unless you have the ability to fully grasp the first, second, and third verses of the Chatushloki, then you need to basically understand all of these for you to be able to fully comprehend, be able to have a full sense of the nature of absolute truth. The fourth verse, which essentially talks about bliss, Ananda, Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Yeah. So that's being described here in the Chatushloki, and that is basically the Srimad Bhagavatam in gist, and that is being given to Lord Brahma. And then Shri Krishna is bringing the whole thing up again to Uddhava. This is for the benefit of Sri Maitreya Muni. Uddhava said, O Vidura, when I was thus favored at every moment by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and addressed by him with great affection, my words failed in tears, and the hairs on my body erupted. After smearing my tears, I, with folded hands, spoke like this. Now, this is Uddhava speaking to Krishna. O my Lord, devotees who engage in the transcendental loving service of your lotus feet have no difficulty in achieving anything within the realm of the four principles of religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. But, O Great One, as far as I am concerned, I have preferred only to engage in the loving service of your lotus feet. So, the very fundamental nature of Srimad Bhagavatam is also described by Srila Rupa Goswami. Yeah, Anya Bilashita Shunyam. Anya Bilashita Shunyam. What are the Anya Abhilashas? Anya Abhilashas can fall in the category of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Anya Bilashita Shunyam. Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam Bhakti Uttamas. Uttama Bhakti is the motivation of Srimad Bhagavatam. Uttama Bhakti is the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, where there is no focus on Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. There isn't. We don't talk about any of those topics here. They're not considered to be superlative. What is considered to be superlative is pure devotional service. And Srila Rupa Goswami's main verse of Anyabhilashita Shunyam is particularly apt in describing Srimad Bhagavatam. So if there is any particular group which has a birthright to study Srimad Bhagavatam, it is the Gaudiya Vaishnavas who follow the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami. It is because he particularly, very, very clearly described Anyabhilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadi, Anavritam, Anukulyena. This verse of Anukulyena, described by Srila Rupa Goswami, does not mean favorably reacting to Krishna. That is not what it means. Anukulyena here means following in the footsteps of Srimati Radharani. This is what it means. Anukulyena is to follow in the footsteps of Srimati Radharani. So following in the footsteps of Srimati Radharani and chanting Harinam is what qualifies one to understand Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srimad Bhagavatam motivates us to follow in the footsteps of Srimati Radharani and chant Harinam. So it is vice versa. So Bhagavatam is Krishna. Krishna is motivating us to follow in the footsteps of Srimati Radharani. Following in the footsteps of Srimati Radharani, she will motivate us to reach Srimad Bhagavatam, which is Krishna himself. Yeah. So this is basically reciprocal, where one has the ability to be motivated by both Srimati Radharani and Krishna as they favor each other's service. Yeah. Krishna wants to serve Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani wants to serve Krishna. So they motivate each other. They motivate the devotees. Yeah. Krishna basically motivates us to serve Anukulyena. Anukulyena. Follow the footsteps of the Rupanugas, who are also basically the followers of the followers of the followers of Srimati Radharani. And then once one does that, they're very motivated to read Srimad Bhagavatam and they can understand Srimad Bhagavatam, which is Krishna himself. So there's a reciprocal arrangement. So here, motivated by Krishna, Sri Uddhava is speaking a few words, and this in turn is to motivate Maitreya Rishi, Maitreya Muni. Yeah, this is basically to motivate Maitreya Muni, saying, I don't have any interest in Artha, Kama, Artha, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. I have no interest whatsoever. All I wanted to do was to engage in the loving service of your lotus feet. So he is saying, yeah, this is what I wanted, and you gave it to me. Because Krishna is telling him, saying, Uddhava, you're coming back to my transcendental abode. You desired this. You wanted my association. I'm granting you my eternal association. Yeah. So this is all done to motivate Sri Maitreya. My Lord, even the learned sages become disturbed in their intelligence when they see that your greatness engages in fruitive work, although you are free from all desires, and that you take birth, although you're unborn, and you flee out of fear of the enemy, and take shelter in a fort, although you are the controller of invincible time, and that you enjoy householder life surrounded by many women, although you enjoy in your own self. Yeah, this is quite bewildering. In reality, understanding the avatars of Lord Ram is very bewildering. Very, very bewildering to understand the avatar of Lord Ram. Why would he struggle? Why would he lament? The amount of struggles he goes through in establishing, the code of honor and the dharma and so on. He's Maryada Purushottam. He goes through such great trouble in going through all that one could go through, unimaginable level of, I would say, tribulations come in the life of Lord Sri Ram. It's very difficult to understand that he is the supreme person, because generally our concept of God is that he should be trouble free. Yeah, because we want to be trouble free, because we have a desire to be trouble free, and we worship with the motivation that, oh, we're going to be trouble free. That is just mundane religiosity. Mundane religiosity is to worship and attend church, attend the synagogue, attend the mosque, attend the temple, attend different festivals, and do all of these. This is mundane religiosity. Doing all of this so that there could be peace in life is just mundane religiosity. It is just mundane religiosity. Yeah. Now, the idea of moving from mundane religiosity to a point where you look at the Supreme Lord, who is supposed to grant you peace and grant you all the comforts of life, going through all kinds of tribulations, is quite bewildering. It is very bewildering. Yeah. Why would, how dare a demon kidnap the consort of the Lord? How dare the demon kidnap the consort of the Lord? Yeah. Why would he go away in Vanvas and be in an exile for 14 years? Why would he send his pregnant wife to the forest? Because he wanted to preserve dharma. He wanted to do Kshatriya dharma. He wanted to be a Raja in a proper way, in a king. It's just unimaginable. Then mundane religiosity bewilders those who worship Lord Sri Ram, thinking, he was in such great trouble. What's the point in worshiping him? So they end up worshiping demigods because they can't really relate to this personality who went through so much trouble. Yeah. Lord Ram basically can grant any kind of blessing and any kind of favor to his devotees, anything at all. Anything. He's like a king who would struggle for his own principles, but would want his subjects to be very happy. But mundane religiosity, followers of mundane religiosity, would be quite bewildered. They wouldn't understand Krishna either. They can't understand why the Supreme Lord should be transported in the middle of the night in a storm. Why would the Supreme Lord be hidden in his childhood from the eyes of Kamsa? Why would the Supreme Lord, as he grows older, run away to Dwaraka in fear of Jarasandha? Because Jarasandha was attacking Mathura. He wasn't running away in fear. He wanted Mathura to be free from the attacks of Jarasandha. But why go away to Dwaraka? Why not kill Jarasandha? Yeah. So it's very bewildering when we look at the Supreme Lord, especially when they descend in their original transcendental human form. In other words, the two-arm form. Very bewildering. Very, very bewildering. So great sages also get very bewildered when they see him in this particular rupa. So if Lord Ram was bewildering, Krishna was even more bewildering to understand. Krishna Leela is even more bewildering to understand. Very, very bewildering. So that is the statement that is being made here. O my Lord, your eternal self is never divided by the influence of time, and there is no limitation to your perfect knowledge. Thus, you are sufficiently able to consult with yourself, yet you called upon me for consultation, as if bewildered, although you are never bewildered. And this act of yours bewilders me. When Krishna was in Dwaraka, Uddhava was an associate who helped him administrate. So sometimes, due to administrative issues, Krishna used to call Uddhava and consult with him. Now, Uddhava is bringing that up. He's saying, you are invincible time. You are the source of knowledge. You had no reason to be bewildered, yet you acted bewildered, and you invited me, and I became bewildered because of that. Yeah. My Lord, kindly explain to us, if you think us competent to receive, the transcendental knowledge which gives enlightenment about yourself, which you explained before to Brahmaji. When I thus express my heartfelt desires unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the lotus eyed Lord instructed me about his transcendental situation. So, next week we will continue from verse 20. I want to stop here at 19. I'm not sure if, yeah, we'll stop here. We'll stop here and then we'll continue from 20 onwards next week. So, if there are any questions or comments so far, I can take comments and questions for a few comments and questions.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Very nice class. Now, Prabhu, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm in India. The bandwidth is not great. When you were speaking, it was breaking. Is it audible?
You are very clear, actually. I'm not sure if my voice had broken down with for others as well, but I can hear you very clearly.
My question was on Sanchita karma and Prarabdha karma.
Hmm.
You mentioned that as we chant the holy name, Sanchita karma, and so the Prarabdha karma disappears, and when the Sanchita karma disappears, you leave the body. Have I understood that correctly?
Yes, um, basically, the answer is that Sanchita karma, you can understand that there's a sum total of karma, and the sum total of karma is completely thrown away by the chanting of Harinam. Some part of the karma is represented in this lifetime as prarabdha. Our prarabdha can be seen by our body, our birth, the level of knowledge we have, all of the aspects of who we are reflected as our prarabdha karma. Now, this karma, beyond this karma, when one receives inspiration, they want to go over and above what they were already born with. That is done by coming in touch with sadhus. That is what I was trying to explain.
Yeah, okay, I understood that. So just understand further on the karmic aspect. So as we chant, we burn the karma, and but then I still see devotees, some of them like suffering. Um, but we are also chanting, so we are burning the karmas of the past.
Yes, when we are
Like
chanting,
some of them have cancer. Yeah, some of them with cancer and that kind of intense suffering. Sometimes even the sannyasis, and you wonder, is it because they take on the karma of others that they are suffering, um, or they're just burning away their karma from before?
yeah, so there are two different levels. One is that when we come to Krishna consciousness and we come under the care of Srila Prabhupada, we initiated and we're coming and we're chanting Harinam, whatever is given to us and whatever remains as karma is that which is necessary for us to continue our process of devotional service. If we suffer or go through circumstances that are quite intense whilst being in devotional service, and after such suffering, our devotional service becomes even more steady, then one has to understand that that was necessary as an experience, and which is the reason why Krishna allowed us to experience it. If, on the other hand,
Mm.
we go through intense suffering and we lose faith and we walk away from the process, then we have to understand that that was just our karma and we had no capacity whatsoever for us to be able to move forward. And that was due to offenses. So there's a distinction
Mm.
between outcomes. The outcome of becoming even more stronger after going through intense experiences versus staying, not being able to continue after an intense experience. These are two different distinctions where we can understand what Krishna is doing. So the point I'm trying to make is if the ultimate goal of the devotee is to become much, much more stronger in devotional service, where anarthas are being removed, sometimes anarthas that are being removed would require the devotee to go through certain experiences, and such karma is allowed for the devotee. Yeah, they go through that intense experience so that they can give up some anarthas, some very, very deep attachments that they can't really quite put their finger on. And they go through intense experiences and they throw away such karma which they can't perceive. Yeah, so it is required. So the point I'm trying to make is that most of what we need to experience is completely annulled when we come in touch with Harinam. That particular moment of just chanting Harinam with deep faith is liberating, which is why the after the clearing stage it is called Namabas, because Harinam has the ability to give us the effect of liberation where we would never even experience what suffering is. But the process of devotional service is not mundane religiosity. The process of devotional service is such that if there is need for us to move forward and there is a necessity for us to go through certain experiences, and those experiences themselves are also a part of a karma, but that experience is required, then Krishna would just allow us to experience it. So that is how we need to understand it. This is the answer. Now, the second point,
In
yeah, go ahead.
So, just to understand, in one sense, Krishna kind of picks and chooses for us
Yes,
karma. So he wipes most of it, and he picks and chooses some of it for our purification.
true. The way we want to understand it is that Yogamaya, we are under the care of Yogamaya. Her objective is to bring us closer to the Lord, and she would allow certain things and she would not allow certain things. Some anarthas have to be removed. Say, for example, there is an anartha that I'm carrying within myself in my karma that can practically take me away from devotional service if I allow it to flourish and if it goes forward. I would rather that anartha is removed through the very short spell of intense suffering so that I'm free from that anartha and I can move forward. Sometimes you see devotees come out much, much stronger after tribulations, and they basically do very, very well in devotional service after going through some intense experience. This is proof that Krishna basically has allowed them to remove something quite intense, which otherwise they would have struggled through and they would have limped along for an entire lifetime or perhaps more than one lifetime. Does it make sense?
Yes, Prabhu.
Now, the second point I want to do mention, just want to clarify, when gurus, spiritual masters, when you use the word sannyasi, I'm talking about guru in general.
Yeah.
Sannyas is an ashram. So a guru, for instance, one would say a guru is worshipped as the representative of the Lord, and how could he go through such intense experiences? The answer is that a part of what I explained before applies to him as a devotee as well, where there is some intense experience which they have to go through as well so that they could give up. Now, can you explain the phenomenon of Srila Prabhupada being gored by a bull here in Vrindavan? He was in hospital for 2 to 3 months, and this was just before he was going to begin his biggest mission of the entire movement of spreading the mission of Krishna consciousness. This was just before that he was in hospital here in Vrindavan for almost 2 months because a bull gored him as he was just walking on the streets of Vrindavan. Yeah, can we explain why? We can't. But then that is basically a part of Krishna's arrangement to assist in that particular circumstance to make Srila Prabhupada perhaps more, I would say, ready for what he had to face in coming in touch with quite unorthodox circumstances when he was traveling in the West. You see, when you lie in the hospital bed, you put up with so much circumstance. Yeah, there's someone lying next to you. You can imagine an Indian hospital 30 years, 40, sorry, 60 years back. It was quite intense. Yeah, Indian hospital here in Vrindavan, village hospital. It was quite intense. He was just here lying for 2 months almost. Yeah, he went through a lot of changes and then he began his mission after that. So, can we explain what was the necessity for that? The answer is we cannot have an accurate explanation, but one should understand that the what followed after that was so glorious that that must have been necessary. So you can make an inference. Yeah. So that's how we should understand that as well. So pure devotees, great devotees also go through tribulations. Spiritual masters go through all kinds of challenges because they take on karma due to disciples. It's a fact. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada himself, as the disciples increased, he became weaker. Yeah, simply because there is a change of karma when you take responsibility for someone, and there's an exchange, and that exchange needs to be digested. And Srila Prabhupada basically, it was very clear that there were some bodily challenges that he faced because of this. All kinds of bodily challenges. He was very, very, when he went to the West in the age of 70, he did not have a walking stick. He used to walk without the aid of a walking stick. Few years, and then he already had all kinds of health issues. Yeah. So that is the other understanding that we also have to have, that as disciples, we have great responsibility in being able to do our part because there's someone who has agreed to suffer on our behalf. That is our spiritual master. Someone has stood before Krishna and has petitioned, saying, I will take the place of this soul and I will suffer on their place. And that is the role of the spiritual master. He has already suffered, he's paid the price. Yeah. So it's a great responsibility for the disciple to understand that if you're given this mercy of being connecting formally to a spiritual master, it's an enormous responsibility on the disciple because the spiritual master has told Krishna that I will take on the suffering of this soul. Put me in that soul's place. Let me suffer. Let that soul be delivered. This is what Srila Prabhupada did when he came on the planet. And that is what some of, that is the experience of his disciples who became gurus as well. Yeah, that's what a guru is doing, is putting himself in the place of the disciple, taking on the suffering so that the disciple can move forward. All right. Is there any other question? Okay, there are a bunch of questions on chat. Okay, one moment. Please, can you explain? We receive knowledge when we hear from Sadhu, Sangha. This is the real way to receive transcendental knowledge. So, what should our intention be when we read Shastra by ourselves? There are several ways to read Shastra. One of the wonderful ways to read Shastra is if you can read it to your spiritual master. When you read to your spiritual master, so for example, you could read to the picture of Prabhupada, you could read to the picture of your spiritual master, and as a consequence, then you will understand Shastra better as well. So this becomes a service that you are basically reading Srimad Bhagavatam for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from his own books. So we can understand it that way too. Yeah, you can try that. Now, which karma is removed and taken at the initiation? Um, yeah, the karma that is removed at initiation, you should understand it as karma that is necessary for us to receive the ability to chant Harinam. The karma that needs to be removed so that we have the ability to chant Harinam. That is what is being taken out during the process of initiation. So, not the entire body of karma that we carry, but what is required for this particular soul to chant 16 rounds and follow the principles, that is taken out during the process of initiation. Okay. Um, one moment. Just wondering if this conversation between Lord Krishna and Uddhava follows up as Uddhav Gita in Canto 11. Um, Basically, there are multiple versions that are being given in Canto 11. So, this conversation is what is being given as a gist to Sri Vidura by Uddhava. But then in Canto 11, we have a more elaborate sequence of interchange between Uddhava and Krishna. Because in Canto 11, Krishna talks about the Avadut Brahmana. He is actually glorifying Lord Dattatreya when he's talking about the Avadut Brahmana, yeah, the Brahmana in Canto 11. So there are multiple conversations. I was just wanting to say that you can say that this is a gist which is being drawn, but that conversation took place in Dwaraka. This conversation is happening just before the departure of the Lord. Is there any other question or comment? We have a few more minutes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Sharada here, Dandavat Pranam. Hari Bol. Can you
Haribol,
hear
Dandavat.
me?
Yes, I can. Dandavat.
Yeah, that's Prabhu. What I missed. What is Prarabdha? I missed it. About it. What does
So, so,
Prarabdha?
so sorry, Mataji.
What does
Your voice is really breaking.
my, okay? I want to know what Prarabdha means. Not of karma,
Sure.
but what does it mean?
Well, fundamentally, yes, you're quite experienced, but I will just give you the understanding that I have. Prarabdha is that which we have to experience in this lifetime. And the example that I normally give is that if we were to consider our entire karma to be put into a very large pot, if our entire karma is being put into a very large pot and there's millions of lifetimes of karmic reactions, now just before we are conceived, because karma begins at conception itself, just before we are conceived in the womb of the mother, at that point, a handful from that pot is being given to us to experience in this lifetime. That handful which is being given to us to experience in this lifetime is prarabdha. There's still the whole pot that remains, but a handful from that pot is being given to us to experience in this lifetime. The characteristics of prarabdha are the physical body, the family circumstances, abilities, knowledge, etc. All of these are prarabdha, which means whatever is manifest and our capacity in this world, all of this is prarabdha. Can prarabdha change? The answer is yes. When we come in touch with devotional service, we have the ability to modify our experiences. So, what we have come with can be modified by coming in touch with devotional service. If you come in touch with very powerful aspects of devotional service, such as Harinam, this Harinam has the capacity to completely empty the entire pot of millions of lifetimes of karmic reactions. So that is the beauty of Harinam, and that is the wonderful good fortune that we have in being a part of Lord Chaitanya's movement. Okay, so there are a couple of questions. I have some personal queries related to karma and want to keep continuing in Casey. Could you please let me know the good way to reach out? I will not be able to contact in WhatsApp due to personal issues. Um, Perhaps I can just share an email and there can be an email exchange. The email can also be found on sandini.com. You can find it on sandini.com. There's a contact us page and you could contact us through that. So there's another question here. The sound that we expose ourselves to makes an impact on our consciousness. So when we hear class, the sound vibration is pure from the speaker. But when devotees ask questions, sometimes there are ideas which are not conducive stick with us. So how to protect ourselves? I think when devotees ask questions, there are responses to those questions by the speaker as well. So I guess what is important is to gauge questions and responses both together. Yeah, not just questions, but questions and responses. Okay, is there anything else that I can assist with? One question can be taken if anybody wants to ask.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna,
Oh,
sorry. Go
sorry,
on.
Okay,
Prabhu.
no problem. Two questions. Let's go for one at a time.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, all best to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. So, Prabhuji, how far does the prarabdha, like how much is the prarabdha removed or not removed for a devotee who's practicing Krishna consciousness? We are initiated, Brahman service, everything, but the consciousness is not that pure and clean that should be like of a where it is, whereas it is for a pure devotee. And servicing the guru is also not possible due to various situations, but just servicing general devotees, like I mean, no, I would not say, sorry, general, but devotees in the congregation, indirectly. So in that situation, for that person also, like prarabdha for that person is removed or not removed, or like how does that work? Can you please
See,
explain?
yeah, sure. See, prarabdha is our conditioning, our propensities, and our propensities and our conditioning of what we bring into this birth also forces us to desire a future. The extent to which we desire a future which is separated from Krishna consciousness, to that extent we are being influenced by our prarabdha. The extent to which we desire a future that is very Krishna conscious, to that extent we have accepted the mercy given by the Guru and the Parampara, and we are on our way to clear out the prarabdha. So, on the way to clearing out the prarabdha, there could be certain disturbances along the way where we might feel as if we haven't really gone very far. If we have really been sincere and we feel we haven't been going very far, then we can intensify our effort and we can increase our effort and we would see results come through as well. But the point I'm just trying to make is that the real gauge of understanding whether we have left behind our old problems is if we can be steady in Krishna consciousness. If your practice of Krishna consciousness is steady, understand that we are doing what is required. That is very important. The results of our practice are not controlled by us. Krishna would give us the consciousness that is required. The results are not controlled by us. But our practice is very proper, then we surely are on a very firm path. That we should understand. So that is what we need to constantly struggle with and monitor and endeavor towards ensuring that our practice is on very firm grounds. If our practice is not proper, we seek help, because you can't chant, you can't do, we seek help. That's very important for us. That is how we make an assessment of whether the prarabdha is loosening itself.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Very nicely explained.
Hare Krishna,
Sure.
Prabhu.
Hare
Dandavad.
Krishna. Dandavad.
Prabhu, you said that left behind Prarabdha. What will happen to that? So once, are we going to get that in case, okay, you take another birth, and again do devotional service, or even you don't take a birth, though, whichever way, what will happen to those conditioning? It's going to affect us again?
Well, if we carry over what's left over, however, our desires for involvement in service and our involvement in service in this lifetime would allow us to come into a particular body where we can continue our devotional service. But that body will largely be a situation which is controlled by our devotional destiny rather than the prarabdha. Does it make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So let us assume that if you have in a scale of 1 to 10, if someone clears, let us say 6 and 4 is left over. Yeah. But with the 4, they're already endeavoring in devotional service and they're desiring a future in Krishna consciousness. That 4 will be carried over, but where they are going is going to be decided by the service and their endeavor in Krishna consciousness. While this prarabdha will also remain, which they will clear up quickly in the next birth. Because now, instead of 10, they only have 4 to clear up. Does it make sense?
Yes, yes, yeah. Thank you.
That's how it is.
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Do you have any time for one more question?
Yes, I can take. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for a wonderful class and very helpful for me. But I have actually a couple of questions, but let's see how it goes. I think one of the point you mentioned, maybe I'm confused, where you said that Maitreya Muni was not a great devotee. Was it referred to Maitreya Muni or Sri Uddhava? Or when we
I was
say,
sorry.
go on.
Finish, please finish.
No,
Please finish.
when we say he's not great devotee, it doesn't mean like he's not like a pure devotee without any material desires or any any desires behind. That's what we mean. He's not the greatest devotee.
No. Actually, so I should correct myself if I have used the word not a great devotee. That would not be appropriate. What I would say is that Sri Maitreya Muni had desires of moksha, he had desires of gyan. So Srila Rupa Goswami's definition of jnana karmadi anavritam, that particular definition Sri Maitreya Muni would not have fit into. Yeah. So he had to receive some extra inspiration. And that is what Sri Krishna was trying to give for Lord Sri Maitreya Muni. So we want to say that Sri Maitreya Muni was definitely a great devotee, but he wasn't fitting in the description of Srila Rupa Goswami. That required some changes. That is what Sri Uddhava and Krishna were trying to assist with.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. One more question. I have time for one more question, Prabhuji.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Again, it's a question related to karma. I think the answer you given for one of the question, basically the karma, whether it's a Krishna, basically giving a mercy, when we still continue in our devotion service, I think that means Krishna is helping us and we're getting stronger. And when we are going out from the Krishna conscience means it's like we are not fit for this Krishna conscience. How do we know whether we are continuing? So basically, I also have some problems. I'm still doing my rounds, having all these problems. How do I understand that I'm progressing, taking these problems, or I'm actually no, still definitely my chanting is definitely not attentive, and I don't even know where I'm very close to anywhere to the attentive. Still, it's very much inattentive. So how can I see that whether I'm going in the right direction or not?
Well, see, the idea is for us to understand that the progress itself has to be gauged in terms of your enthusiasm. So the very fact that you are trying to attend classes and you are focused on the fact that you're not able to chant properly and your attention span is not very good because of, sorry, you're not able to pay attention to your chanting, etc., and you're trying to correct yourself, is also a very good sign that you are making progress. So we do not want to gauge our circumstances by immediate results, but we want to be able to look and see if holistically over a period of time, give or take a few months, we are progressing and we are moving forward. That is how the assessment has to be made. Is your enthusiasm in 2021, is it greater than it was in 2020? Is the enthusiasm in 2022, is it going to be greater than what it was in 2021? We would want to see that. And enthusiasm can be seen by way of wanting to resolve, wanting to move forward, wanting to accept Krishna consciousness and making it a part of our lives, wanting to beg Krishna for help. All of these are clear signs of enthusiasm. So the point I'm trying to make is that we shouldn't really be very black and white in judging whether we are moving forward or not. Yeah, we
Yeah,
shouldn't be
thank
black
you.
and white. The fact that you're endeavoring itself is a sign that you're moving forward.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All right. So I'm going to end here. If there are any other questions, you could always write to me on WhatsApp. And I thank everyone for your participation. So we'll meet again in the next week, and then we will take up the rest of the chapter. So we're leaving at verse 20, and we'll be continuing again. Yeah. So, oh, I'm sorry. I think I forgot one question. Last question. Um, can you please suggest how to serve devotees practically in the situation of COVID? Just listening to them and practicing it in life is just enough. If we still feel not very satisfied with service, can you please advise? Um, I think we have to be practical because these are very unusual circumstances, and we need to be practical under the circumstances so that because we have many more years of service left, and as a consequence, we want to ensure that we are strengthening ourselves. How can we serve? We can serve devotees by chanting and being very, very sincere and attentive to our chanting. Because as you chant, there would be a greater motivation for service that would come. And when the opportunity comes, we would be very sincere in endeavoring for such service. So that's what we should do. But these are very unusual circumstances. The point I'm trying to make is that we shouldn't really extrapolate what is going on in the present to a solution. It is in the present, the best solution is to be careful. That is what we need to do so that we can serve Srila Prabhupada nicely in the future. That's what we need to do. I hope this makes sense. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.